Başlıyor musunuz? Tamam hocam, başlayalım. Genel katılış.
Okay, I hope everybody can hear me. My name is Kamil Dursun. I am working in Norway at the University College of Ostfold, which means Eastern Norway. And I would thank Altınbaş University for accepting me here to give a lecture. My lectures will be today on frequency sounds of bees. Tomorrow I will give 2 double lectures on electrical machines and transformers, with some repetition of magnetic circuits, I think. And the last day, finally, on Thursday, I will give some information about the pricing of electricity in Norway and in Northern Europe. So there will be totally 4 double lectures, double hours. I am a professor in energy technology. I'm a power engineer, so you can ask why am I speaking about these? This is my hobby. I have been working with bees for about 15 years. It's a very interesting hobby. I would recommend everybody. Is there anybody who has a father, an uncle, or whatever who has been dealing with bees? No. Okay, it's a pity because, as I said, it is very interesting to have some information about the life of bees.
Someone at yes.
Is there a question? Maybe that one, yeah. Good. Congratulations. I am, as I said, I am an amateur beekeeper. And if you check the word amateur, what amateur means is it comes from the Latin word amore, which means that a person who loves what he's doing. A professional is a person who has to do what he's doing because he needs to earn money and he needs to live on what he's doing. But an amateur does it because he loves it. And I am, in that way, I am an amateur. Professional beekeepers are, of course, dependent on their life, on their job. Sometimes, luckily not every day, but from time to time we hear that a lorry, for example, carrying hundreds of beehives has had an accident and millions of bees were spread on the road. And of course, this is a terrible thing for the beekeeper. His whole life is dependent on these beehives. In other cases, we can hear about bees that have sicknesses, diseases, and then the beekeeper is told to kill and burn all these bees. These things are disasters for a beekeeper's life. For an amateur, of course, it's a bad thing to us, but our lives do not depend on this, so that it is easier for us to survive such things. In that way, also, it is easier for us to make some experiments. And because the professional beekeeper cannot make mistakes, he has to do his job. But an amateur can make experiments, and if he makes mistakes, if the honey production is reduced 1 year, okay, not a big deal. But as I said, the professionals have to do that. So which means that an amateur can do some experiments, and that's what I have been doing. I can also say that Turkey is a big bee country, honey country, not only for honey, for bees, but also for bee and honey production industrial equipment. There are lots of companies producing these industrial machines, and they are exporting also to Europe and the whole world. So we in Turkey are quite developed on beekeeping. So let me start with this sentence. Maybe you all heard that. A couple of years ago, everybody in the internet was hearing that without bees, the humanity will die after 4 years. In Norway, the beekeeping organization, association, we were not 100% sure if Einstein has said this or not. So we sent a mail to the Einstein Institute in Israel. And you know, Einstein was a Jew, and he has an Einstein Institute in Israel. And we got a reply, and the reply said, no, Einstein has not said anything about peace and humanity. In fact, Einstein has said nothing about peace in his whole life. So that we can say that Einstein did not say without peace, the humanity will last only 4 years. But without peace, the humanity will survive. You can say that corn and cereals, wheat, they pollinate only with wind. They don't need bees. Grass pollinate with wind. But we cannot, as humans, digest grass, because in order to digest grass, you have to have 4 stomachs. So we can, for example, give the grass to cows and to sheep, and then we eat their meat. So that we will survive, but the life will be much more boring, because a lot of fruit and vegetables will not exist anymore. So that if you are willing to live only on meat and on rice and wheat, okay. But if not, we should be able to look after our bees. This presentation will have some parts. I will, since many of you don't know about bees, so I will give you a general introduction of the life of bees. I will give an introduction on the aspects of beekeeping, what the beekeeper does. And later on, I will explain about the sounds that bees generate and how can we understand about the bees and their health according to the frequency of the sounds they generate, and what I have been doing until now, and what we can think of doing in the future. I have 2 hours, but maybe we don't need 2 hours, but if you have any questions, please ask, and I will try to answer as good as I can. As I said, I'm not an expert in beekeeping. I'm an amateur beekeeper, but during those 15 years, I have learned something about this. So you can say that honey has been produced for many, many centuries. We still, in fact, have some honey produced by Egyptians. It is still edible today. During the last 60, 70 years, beekeepers have been doing this job in a more scientific way, so that the beekeeping gets a bit simplified, and we can have the control over the bees' health in a better way. So that bees have to work together and in a healthy way, so that and harmoniously, so that we will be able to get what we need from them. A bee colony consists of 3 types of bees. We have worker bees, they are female. We have drones, they are male. And we have only 1 queen in the colony. She is, of course, a female, and she is responsible for laying eggs and producing new bees. It is the worker bees who do all the job. Drones do nothing. It's like humans. The women work and the men watch football. But the drones are needed only once in their lifetime to mate with the queen, so that she will be able to lay her eggs. Here are 2 types of beehives. The one on the left is the old type beehive. This is typical made of straw. They are just putting the straw like this. Also in Africa, for example, they used to make beehives out of clay. This is not a very good and practical way of doing it, because when you take out the honey, you destroy the colony. The bees have to leave the honey, have to leave the hive, so that it is not a very productive way of producing honey. On the right side, we see a modern beehive. It has a bottom board. This is where bees enter and leave the hive. On the top of it, we have some boxes which are with same size. We can have several of these boxes. The lower one is where the queen lives, and she gives birth to, she lays a lot of eggs. She can lay 2,000 eggs per day. The bees come in and out. They are usually bringing honey and the pollen. Here is what we call a queen excluder, because this is made up of some metal bars. They are about 4 millimeters from each other, so that the worker bees can pass. Worker bees are smaller than the queen. The queen cannot pass. So that's why queen is always here. But the worker bees pass and start storing honey on the other boxes. This is what we call is a brood box. Brood is, of course, larvae. This is what we call the supers. And during the summer, when the bees are filling each of these supers, we can add more and more supers. So it can be quite high, a beehive, depending on the productivity, of course. And on top of it, we have a top board and finally a roof, so that it protects the hive from rain and from snow and other weather phenomena. Inside the boxes, we have frames, and we put wax in these frames so that the bees can work on them. This is what we call foundation. So we give them this wax so that they don't need to produce more wax, and they can immediately start producing their honey. What the bees do is that they start drawing out this wax. They build up thicker wax, and then they start putting honey in these cells. Of course, you know that bees make cells of hexagons. And all these hexagons are either filled by brood, larvae, new young bees, or honey or pollen, depending on what they are bringing in. These are the different type of bees. Several pictures of the same thing. This is a worker bee here and here. They are, as you say, smaller. On the right-hand side, we have a drone. They are bigger. They are male bees. And in the middle here, we have a queen. Queen is much larger, and she has a big back part because she's full of eggs. And that's why she cannot pass through this, what I call the queen excluder. You see that here we have a mark on the bee queen. In the hive we have about 50,000 worker bees, about 200-300 drones, and only one queen. So it is quite difficult to see and find the queen in the hive. So that's why we mark them, and which makes it easier for us to spot the queen. And we mark them with a specific number, a specific color. According to which year the queen is born. The queen can live maybe 2 or 3 years. Some queens even live 4 years, but then they get old and their productivity gets down. The number is that a year ending with 1 is marked white, ending with 2 is yellow, 3 is red, 4 is green, and 5 is blue, and then 6 is white, yellow, red, green, blue again. So every 5 years we have different color codes here, so that we know how old our queen is. The queen lays her eggs in the cells. These are eggs, the little white things. And as I said, she can lay 2,000 eggs during the day. And after 2 or 3 days, the eggs become larvae. And the other bees give them what we call queen jelly. maybe you heard about this queen jelly, arı sütü. The bees give queen jelly to the larvae so that they can grow. It's of course a very nutritious substance. The bees give only enough queen jelly to each of the workers so that the workers are not 100% developed. Their sexual organs are not developed. They can only work, but they cannot make eggs and new babies. This is 2-3 days old larva, and then they grow, fill out the cell, and then they stretch, and finally they emerge as young bees. I will see if I can have this YouTube video so that we can see how a queen is laying her eggs. Yeah, this is a queen. As you see, she is bigger than all her other daughters. And around the queen, there are some worker bees helping her. Sorry, this was not. I don't know what's happening. Let's see. So queen, onu ben bana yardım edin. Any questions from the online?
Next night, from the Microsoft Teams, we have a question. If the queen dies, what will happen to the bees?
I will explain that later.
Okay.
One we are looking after. Tamam, doğru.
She must lay the eggs of the next generation of workers, colonists, and even her own replacement. But first, Queen was made. And to do that, she must leave the hive. She sets off on her first mating flight. She's about to equal. When the queen appears, she's immediately surrounded by the maidens, who follow her unique scent. Each of those dorsal groups who get to meet allies in the end. The queen flies back to the hive immediately. Her body carrying the sign of success. What's left? Surely a few more mating flights in the coming days. And then have enough sperm in her body to fertilize eggs for the rest of her life. She may last a lonely 4 years. It's now time for the beekeeper to Vegas her status to look one of the bees. But becomes a material. A bee could be sold to another beekeeper once establishing a colony. Such a valuable product needs to be part of random sleep.
I don't think we shall spend too much time on this.
They are then bathed in sweat.
Sometimes we mark them with numbers, not with colors.
It takes a few days for the eggs to grow to larvae. They are then bathed in a special food brought to them by workers. During its first minute, a larva eats so much its weight increases 5.5 times. 6 days, its weight increases 1,500 times. The larvae then spin cocoons and pupae develop inside until they emerge 2 weeks later as adult bees. The queen only stops laying eggs when the weather grows cold in November. Each bee makes the metamorphosis from egg to larva to an adult in about 3 weeks.
Okay,
And there's little surprise.
I will tell about the rest later on. So this is, in general, how a bee is produced, a worker bee. She grows in a cell of a small hexagon, and then she Okay, and now I hope that you can hear what I'm saying now. 30 seconds. The bees produce much more honey than what they need, so we steal their honey. Sometimes in a warm country like Turkey, you leave the honey inside the first box, the brood box. But in Norway, the production is not so high, so we take all the honey out and we give them back sugar syrup, sugar water, so that they will survive the winter, or they will die, they will starve. And here are a couple of pictures with a bee with pollen. While the bee is getting nectar, she also pollinates the flowers, of course. Those pollens are from the flowers. And pollen is also a very good food for the bees. So they carry it back to their hive, as you see at their backbones. And they put it in the hive, in the wax, and press it hard with their legs. And it becomes what we call a bee bread. So that maybe you know that you can buy green jelly and eat just a drop every day. It is very nutritious. Also, you can also buy pollen from Kadıköy or whatever, so that you can also eat just half a spoonful, half a teaspoon pollen every day. It is said to be very good for your health. Another thing these do is what we call the waggle dance. They communicate with their sisters and tell them that where there is flowers, where they can go. And let's see if this works.
Honeybees have some fascinating abilities, among them being able to communicate by performing a unique dance. It informs hive mates where a newly discovered food source is located. Every cycle of this waggle dance roughly describes the shape of the figure 8. He only waggles on a part of its route, the straight line, indicated here by the waved line. The secret lies in the direction of the straight line, or to be more precise, in the angle between the straight line and the perpendicular, which in this case is 90 degrees to the left. This tells the other bees the food is available 90 degrees to the left of the sun. If the angle is 60 degrees to the right, they'll be flying 60 degrees to the right of the sun.
So they tell each other how they can find honey. What is important with the bee is that if she starts fetching pollen of one flower, she always goes to the same flower before she returns. So that's why she can pollinate the flowers very easily. Okay, now there was a question about the queen. Queen, of course, is the single most important individual in the hive. Her job is to lay eggs and also to produce what we call pheromones. They are some chemical substances that they have some special smell. I don't know what, but the bees, of course, know this. And all the bees touch each other all the time, so they have the same pheromone. The bees in the same hive have the same pheromone from the same queen. And for example, if there are some strange bees coming, foreigner bees, they recognize it immediately, and then they can kill that bee. The queen cannot eat food herself because she is only busy with laying eggs. So that if you see on this picture, there are lots of young bees around her, giving her the food she needs. These pheromones are also helping bees to have a certain mood, because some hives, they are very aggressive. You cannot come T meters in the vicinity of the hive and they start attacking you. Some are very good at working and bringing honey. Some are lazy. All these things are because of the pheromones of the queen. And if the queen does not have the characteristics that we want, then we change the queen. Sometimes we have a wrong queen, but they are terrible. They are very aggressive, or they don't produce enough honey. Then we change the queen. And once in a lifetime, the queen swarms. Swarming means that the queen takes about half of the bees with herself and moves to another location, so that the bees, the colony is kind of giving birth to a new one. We don't speak about bees as individuals. They are like cells in our body. We are the individual, the colony is the individual, but the bees are like the cells. They don't have any meaning without the colony. And of course, if the queen dies, then the colony will also die within a couple of months, because all the bees will get old and no new bees will emerge, and then the colony dies. The bees know this, and what happens is that when the queen gets old, they start producing queen cells. This is a queen cell. As you see, it is much, much bigger than the small hexagonal cells. And when the bees find out that it is time to change the queen, they start producing queen cells, and they fill these cells with queen jelly, so that the queen has a lot of food, and all her body, including her sexual organs, are developed. So that's the difference between a worker bee and a queen bee, and you see the big difference. Here is full of queen jelly, so the queen has all the food she needs. So when the cell is closed, then the old queen goes away, and she swarms, as I said, taking half of the bees with her. And this is something that the beekeepers don't like, because if the queen takes half of the bees with her, and if she disappears, then we have lost those bees, and we don't want to lose them. And what happens is that when the queen leaves, you see like that, the whole sky becomes black with the bees, and then they go somewhere, and this is a place, a temporary place that they stay. It can be very many funny places like this. It can be around under the roof of your house, whatever. And here they stay maybe 6 hours, maybe sometimes 1 or 2 days before they find a place to live. So they send out bees to look for a good place, a suitable place. It can be a hollow in a tree or whatever. And when they come back, when they find something, they come back and tell the other bees, okay, I found a new home for us. And then they leave altogether. What we want to do is that we want to catch this swarm, because we don't want to lose those bees. And we can catch the swarm by, when we have a swarm in the vicinity, we can find a box, put some kind of honey or wax in that box. And when you shake the bees inside, then they say, okay, here's our new home. In that way, we have not lost all these bees. That is what I'm going to speak about, and swarming, and especially the time of estimation when the bees swarm. Because, as I said, we don't want to lose them, and when we know that the bees are swarming, we want to catch them. Swarming is healthy, because if there was some disease in the hive, then the new bees who left the hive get rid of that disease. But it is uneconomical, because, as I said, we lost those bees. And also during the swarming, as I said, swarming is kind of a period of pregnancy for the hive. So that during the swarming period, it can be 2 or 3 weeks, the bees do not produce much honey. That's why we need to have control over that. As I said, especially for professional beekeepers, they cannot afford losing lots of honey before their economy is getting worse. Let's see if this can. When a new bee is born, she needs to mate. And all the drones are coming after her. And she wants to mate with as many drones as possible because that will give her a good fertility. This is, by the way, produced by I think some German scientists who have made a small drone, which is as big as the bees, which is following. So this is a real picture. And when the drone mates with the queen, she has a penis like a harpoon. So when it goes in, it cannot come out, which means that the drone falls and dies. And then she comes back and starts laying her eggs. These survive, of course, also in the winter. When the weather becomes cold, they form a kind of a cluster because the queen needs 35 degrees all throughout the year. So, and in the middle of this cluster, it's always 35 degrees. The bees are flexing their muscles and producing heat. And when the weather gets colder, the cluster becomes smaller because, as you know, the heat loss is dependent on the surface area. And when it gets warmer, the cluster becomes, so they regulate the size of the cluster so that the temperature is always 35 degrees in the middle. And again, of course, drones who don't do anything, and in the winter the queen does not mate, so they don't need the drones, so they throw them out and they kill them. And this way they can survive the whole winter. I said that the summer bees live only for 6 weeks, but winter bees, they have more protein in their bodies, so they can survive up to 6 months. So the nature knows all these things, and they have all the necessary things to survive. The bees, when they are inside the hive, they do not go to the toilet, so to speak. They keep themselves, and of course in a country like Norway, it can be a winter 6 months. And then they keep these excrements inside, and when the weather gets warm, in April for example, then they fly and they empty themselves. And of course, if you have, for example, windows or white lining hanging on your garden, everything becomes brown. So it's not a good thing to good view. Okay, so this is just the general information about the life of bees, and now you are experts in beekeeping. Then I will tell about how we can utilize this knowledge to our beekeeping business. As I said, the pheromones of the queen decide the behavior of the bees in the colony. So we want good queens, which means that the pheromones give the workers desire to work. They should be hardworking. They should be not aggressive. They should be docile, so that it will be easier for us to work with bees. And they should not swarm very often. These are the important characteristics that we want for the bees. And queen rearing is a science that we produce the queens what we need. I don't produce queens. When I need them, I buy them. So because there are people who are specialized in queen production. A beekeeper opens the hive at least 10 days, at least every 10 days, so that he should find out, is the queen living? Are there any larvae in the hive? Is the brood functioning? Are there enough bees and are there any swarming cells? As I told you, the swarming cells are much bigger. Any signs of disease? We have to follow it, all the hives throughout the summer. And if everything is not as it should be, we should do something. It takes time. A professional beekeeper needs maybe 5 to 10 minutes to. Yes.
question.
Please.
I have two questions.
Yes.
First question, how the baby bees eat and how? And second, when she the queen aggressive or something wrong, why we are changing the queen? Why bees and the bees can't change the queen? Why us doing the
That is possible that you can change the queen, but
why
if,
us? Why
yeah,
why they are bees? They are not like a lot of bees in the home. Why they not change the queen by themselves?
usually they do it. But if we want, as I said, if you are a professional beekeeper, then you need, for those of you who did not hear the question, the question is how the bee babies or larvae get their food.
And how?
And the second question was why do we need to change the queen and why don't we let the bees change the queen themselves? First of all, if I can find the you see that the bees give this queen jelly to the larvae and they eat it. I don't know how they eat it, but they eat and grow with that. And as I said, they get just enough queen jelly so that they will grow up and become workers. Of course, you can let the bees their own new queens and live like that, but it is not guaranteed. Sometimes maybe because of the DNA and because of the DNA structure of the new queen, maybe she is not a good queen either. So that it is better for us. Sometimes we let the bees do it, but sometimes it is a good idea. If we see that the queen has bad characteristics, then we change her and get a good one from the producer. In Turkey, you have cooperatives. They produce queens, and I think the new queens are quite cheap. So it is better for a beekeeper to just change the queen. And of course, as I said, a swarming process, it takes 3-4 weeks. And during that time, the production of honey slows. So if you just take out the queen and put a new one, you don't lose that time. And this is usually the best time of the flowering and fall. So that's why. Economics. So when we are checking the hive, a professional needs maybe 5 or 10 minutes. I need maybe half an hour because I spend time and I enjoy myself. But this time is very critical and crucial for a beekeeper's life. He wants to do these things very quickly because a beekeeper, maybe he has 500 of hives, and he has to do during the whole summer work maybe 10-20 hives every day. So the question is, can we speed up this process? One more question? There's a question. Yeah. As I said, if the queen dies, either we see that if the queen is dead, and we buy a new queen, or we let the bees produce their own queen with the queen cells. One more question. Is there any frequency can improve the productivity? That is what I'm going to come to now, because I don't know anything about cows, but I'm trying to learn about bees. So I will explain what I have been doing. The important thing is that we speed up the checking process of the hives so that a beekeeper can be more productive. So now is, I'm sorry. I will just turn off the sound. So, how can we help beekeepers by analyzing the sound? And this is the question of my whole lecture. I don't know what time it is, but 1 hour. I think I will finish without a break. It's okay? The guy named Edward Woods, he was born in 1901 and he died in 1976. He was an amateur beekeeper like me, and he was also a sound engineer at BBC. He found out that bees give various sounds depending on the condition of the colony. And he built something what he called a predictor, and he patented it, which is in fact a sound filter. This is what he built. This is the fourth generation predictor. The first one was much bigger because it was made by vacuum tubes and so forth. This is the fourth generator, and it's made by transistors. It's in principle a microphone, a filter, and an amplifier. This is, we all know at least what it is. All electrical engineers know what this is. He found out that there are specifically 3 types of sounds that he was interested in. What he called the hum, that is 190 hertz. This is the wing frequency of the grown-up bees. What he called warble, that is the wing frequency of young bees. As I said, young bees are giving food to the queen and to the young ones. And there is something called hiss. It is a kind of a defensive sound. And of course, these are different for different races of queens, but bees. But this is what he found. And he says that when the colony is healthy, queen is laying eggs and everything is fine. Bees are bringing honey. There are no problems. If you hit the hive with the palm of your hand like this, and you will hear a sharp hiss that the bees will. And that tells us that the bees are well, they are living, and they are willing to defend their hive. In addition, there will be some hum and warble, and according to the number of grown-up bees and young bees, there will be some frequencies of lower and higher sounds. And if we check this with this apidictor or whatever it is, it takes maybe a couple of minutes. And if everything is okay, we don't need to open the hive, we don't need to do anything, then we can go to the next hive. And that, of course, increases the productivity of the beekeeper. When the queen loses her productivity, it means that she will be swarming, or otherwise bees will be changing her without swarming. That's called supersedure. So what will happen then? When the bees are preparing to swarm, the young bees who used to feed the queen, they stop it because the queen must slim down because she is going to fly, and it is a long and dangerous journey. So she needs to slim and down so that she can fly. And since she does not get any food, then she stops also laying eggs. And just before swarming, the worker bees fill their stomach with food because, again, as I said, they are going out for a long and dangerous journey. They can need a couple of days before they find a place to live. About 3 weeks before swarming, even before the bees have started to make their queen cells, their behavior changes. They are not so defensive anymore because they are leaving the hive. And when you hit the hive, they will not react with this hiss. And the young bees who used to feed the queen feel unemployed, uneasy, and their sound changes. According to Edwards, the warble will increase. A guy called Dave Cushman, he is also dead now. He was also very interested in beekeeping, and he has a lot of information in the internet. He still has in his life. According to that, the laying of eggs of the queen is going down. This egg laying rate, and nurse bees are going down. And according to that, we can estimate when the queen is going to swarm. And we can catch the swarm easily. Or we can, in fact, move the queen and half of the bees to another hive so that they don't need to swarm. They think they have swarm. So that and the warble increases, yes, and the bees are going to leave the hive, so they don't care about this. And if yeah, okay, so this is the procedure, and according to the bees, they are not leaving the hive because they are just changing the queens inside the hive, so they are still willing to defend the hive. So according to this hum and warble and hiss, we can estimate what the bees are doing. If the queen is dead, if the colony does not have a queen, then the bees become very apathic. They don't know what to do. They don't have these pheromones. They don't have a queen, and that's what we call the roaring. And this is the sound of bees after we remove their queen. Let's see if this is. They are not, this is not a normal sound. If you get such a sound from the bee colony, you know that the queen is dead. Edward Woods tried to sell his apidictor. It was a flop because the beekeepers were not very much technical people, and many of them didn't understand. And also, this apidictor was very heavy and maybe expensive, and so he did not become a rich man, so to speak. But with today's technology, we can do the whole thing with the help of a normal telephone. So what I have been doing is that I have had some bees, and I followed their sound, the whole sound throughout the summer, and try to make some sense out of it. I'm not sure if it is very easy to understand, but at least I try to make. Here's what I have. I have a normal telephone, and I have a splitter here. It splits the microphone, and it splits the earphones. The microphone is, I made it in a way that it will be easy to put inside the hive. Here's my microphone. It is a normal headset from a telephone. You can buy it from the bazaar for 2-3 euros. I just got the earphones and only left the microphone here because I don't need the earphones. And what I do is that I put it inside the hive and try to get some sounds from the bees. The problem with it is that when the bees have this inside the hive, they become very aggressive because this is something foreign for them. And they don't want to, and they start attacking it, and I get lot of noise, which I don't want. So what I have done lately is that I put a new microphone like this in each hive and let it stay there because the bees get used to it, and the next time I'm measuring the sound, they don't get aggressive. This is my microphone. And this is my telephone, and this is the splitter. I said this is going to the this is going to my headphones when I'm listening, and this is going to the microphone. This goes to inside the telephone. You know, in old telephones they had this 3.5mm jack, but nowadays it is impossible to find a telephone with that, so you need to have this adapter. I also find out that USB-C is not as standard as we want it to be. The sound connections are not the same in every telephone. So it took me some time to find out about a USB-C connector that works with my telephone. And I measured sound at different days, 24th April, May, and June, So that let us see what happens. This is what we call the hiss. So when you give the hive a knock, you will hear the knock, and then you will hear the bees giving this sound. Need to have some higher volume, I think. Here or not? Can you help me please how to increase the sound volume? Yeah, maybe this one is easier. Maybe a bit more. Yeah, what I'm speaking about. Now this is in April. May. Here, as you see, it is a bit weaker because in June they are starting to swarm. Now it's more difficult. And at the end of May and in June, when I opened, I saw a lot of swarming cells. So here, sometime here, they want to swarm. After the swarming is finished, after 1 month, the hiss comes back. Maybe you don't hear, but I hear it. I'm used to it. And when we measure the frequency, I'm using a program called Sound Spectrum. It is a FFT program. This is the sound of the old bees on the 24th April. Here on the 8th of May, this is old and young bees. Again, here something is happening to the young and old bees, and the frequency is not as good as what I would like to have. This hum and warble. And 22nd of May, the sound is totally destroyed. And after the swarming, then we start to have these two peaks again. And after the 30th of June, again we have the peak. So that the swarming period was somewhere in between end of May and the beginning of June. It is not easy to interpret all these things because you need to know what you're doing. But the equipment is very simple. You have a telephone, everybody has a telephone. You need some microphones and some small equipment. It is quite cheap. And it is very important for a beekeeper that the equipment should be cheap because there are some systems that monitor the temperature, the sounds, the weight of the hive, but they cost 200 to 300 euros. And of course, a beekeeper cannot buy such equipment for 200-300 euros for his 500 hives, because he has to have one for each hive. So what I'm trying to do is make it cheap and easy and reliable. Again, there's a program app called Sound Spectrum Pro, which does the FFT Fourier analysis. And another program is what's called Hearball Boost, that I can listen to the hive's sound. And again, it is very important to know where the microphone is, because, as I said, this did not work. Because when I put it in the hive, then the bees start attacking it, and I cannot hear the real sounds that I want to hear. So that every hive should have one microphone, and I said the microphone does not cost more than a couple of euros. And I use these normal telephone headsets, and I cut out my earbuds, but just have the microphone to use. I need, of course, in the future to make this more systematic. It would be nice to have a program that does all the job, not only ready-made programs, but we could make a program that is used specifically for the bee sounds. And of course, what I want to do is to produce something that is dedicated to beekeeping. It is lightweight, so the beekeeper does not have to carry it around, because usually the beehives are not on the road. And it should give a reliable indication of the health of the colony. It should be short, cheap, and it should be accurate. This is what I'm trying to achieve. And we were speaking today, if it's possible to have a joint project, for example, it would be very interesting to work together. That's all I have to say. Thank you for listening. Are there more questions? Good question. I have no idea. How can bees help us getting energy from the sun? I cannot think of anything now from the top of my head. I'm sorry. Good question, bad answer. More questions? Can you speak? I cannot hear you. Yes and no. As I said, the queen keeps the sperms of the drones in herself, and she mates with a lot of drones. So she has a lot of sperms in one side and also a lot of unfertilized eggs. So if she wants to produce a worker bee, a female bee, then she must take a sperm and an egg and produce a what you call a zygote or something, and lay that egg. If she wants to produce a male drone, then she doesn't take the sperm. She only puts the egg, and that becomes a drone. And the bees decide if the egg is a zygote with a sperm and an egg together. It's a female. If it's a female egg, then the bees decide if she is going to be a worker or a queen. So any egg, any female egg can be a queen. Yes. Yeah. The bees decide. Okay, we want to make this egg a queen. And then they build a big cell, and fill it with jelly so that egg gets a lot of food and then becomes a feed. There are a lot of things that you can say it's a democratic society. They choose their leader. Yeah. Yeah, well, of course, the good, the rich ones get all the food and the other ones work. You can say it that way.
Okay, there's a question.
I think ants and bees are the same family. So ants also swarm one day, and I think they are the same family and they have the same behavior. Safety of swarm, which is the role of the male. I'm not sure if I understand the question. You need, yes, but when swarming, the ants also get wings. So that maybe you have seen it sometimes. I see it once every year because I live near the forest. Thousands of ants are coming into my place and they are flying. All of them are flying. I don't know how they are swarming, but what I heard is that they are ants and bees are more or less in the same family.
Bees are fertilizing fruits and vegetables for us, but they're doing their jobs 40 million times. However, we still their honey again. So is it ethical to have their honey and leave them enough? What do you think about that?
You can discuss this, of course, up and down, long times. What we have to do is that we must not, we must handle our bees correctly. That is, of course, in any animal. If you have a dog or a cat or a bee, you have to handle them correctly. You do not let them die. You do not let them survive. But if they are producing more than what they need, or if they are getting something back in return, I'm not sure if they mind it. Maybe they mind it and maybe they are angry with us. I'm not sure. But we are at least trying to give something back when we are taking their
How do we know enough?
experience. Yeah, because we always say that, for example, I give about 18 kilos of sugar to my bees, and it is 60% sugar and water, and they survive the winter.
And I have another question. If I see a bee that is like near to death, like very tired, how can I interfere in the situation? I can help them. Okay? No, I don't know.
It's like when a person lives until she is 90, sometime she will die.
Okay, I can let it go.
Interesting, because these are interesting animals. Of course, there are such ethical questions you are raising. Is it good for us to just let them live in the forest without taking any of their honey? In Turkey, it would go. In Norway, no. Because Norway is too cold, and in Norway, we have to help them survive. And also, there are diseases. I did not speak about diseases here, but of course, this has happened to many other animals. Humans try to move one animal from one part of the world to the other, and without thinking about the consequences, like the rabbits in Australia. And this happened to bees also, and they tried to take Central Asian bees to Europe, so that try to do something new. What they did not know is that Central Asian bees had some mite, this little animal that sucks the blood out of the bees. Central Asian bees are used to it because they have been living together for millions of years. European bees cannot. So that and now it's called varroa. All these European bees cannot survive with varroa. So we have to give them medicine every year so that they will survive. So we are doing something stupid and are having problems with that the rest of the time. I think the same happened with wine. Some people brought wine plants, wine roots from America to Europe. And they found out that this wine also has some disease. So all European wines die. You cannot have wine in Europe. What they are doing is that they are taking the American roots into Europe and what's called aşılama. They are putting the European wines into that fruit. So I mean, we are causing problems for ourselves.
I understand from this lecture that you need to make some smart applications for beekeeping.
That's what I'm trying. That's what I'm trying.
For all students of PhD, such as
I think we have to discuss with Mr. Hocam how we are going to continue about this. But I think we need some good heads to use this kind of application, for example, so that we can use it for beekeeping. I think we can discuss this in the future also with your students. Okay. Thank you very much. Yani belki parfümlerle fiyat alıyorlar. Ha şey olarak, sentetik olarak. Zannetmiyorum. Zannetmiyorum. Ama analar feromonlarında insanlar da parfümlerden kullanıyorlar. Ve erkekler kadınlar arasında çekicilik yaratmak için. Dediğim gibi çalışkan olacaklar. Fazla agresif olmayacaklar. Hem sağlıklar. Ve devamlı swarming yapmayacaklar.
Yani şunu istemiyor yani.
Evet.
Nasıl küçük bir şey daha hediye etmek.
Şöyle. Tatlı bir set.
Güzel.